genre of Raw Select Music. Today I've got 3 records right here that I wanted to talk about, all of which either came out at the trail end of 2019 or the beginning of 2020. Been listening to these guys quite a bit as of late, and I wanted to share my thoughts and opinions of them with you guys. So with that little introduction out of the way, let's talk about these guys. First off, we have the new one from Rejoicer, Spiritual Sleaze, released on Stone's Throw Records in 2020. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that Rejoicer's album, Energy Dreams, was one of my favorite records of that year. And a lot of it came down to the fact that there was this very amorphous, intangible quality to it that was really hard to pin down, but ultimately made it a very unique and very interesting listen. So a lot of those elements are present on the new one, although I feel like his influences are a little bit more up front and center on this record. So there are definitely elements of ambient music, electronic music, as well as jazz, new age, hip hop, and neo soul. And it definitely feels like he's really trying to take all of those different elements and combine them together, much like he did on his previous release. But as much as I did really enjoy his Energy Dreams album, this one has kind of left me a little bit cold. It's not a bad album by any stretch of the imagination. It still has a lot of that Rejoicer weirdness that I liked from the last record. There's some really cool weird moments to it. There's some really nice cool synth textures, some really cool ambience going on. Some of the vocal performances on here are really cool. But as much as I liked the intangible quality of this record, I do feel like a lot of the beats were a lot more pronounced on this one. And this one just feels so effervescent. There's not nearly as much of a backbone, which is already sort of a weird thing to say considering I called the previous album an amorphous blob. I think just ultimately hasn't given me really anything to latch onto. I do find myself usually giving up on listening to this album about halfway through. Still, I like the inclusion of some of the vocal tracks on here. Specifically, one of the songs, Up in Flames, has one of the catchiest melodies that I've heard this year. And I really like the outro and intro tracks. I really like the synth-led ambient atmosphere of those 2 tracks. But a lot of this record just kind of doesn't stick with me, and I kind of find myself forgetting about it as soon as I'm done listening to it. That being said, it's by no means a bad album, and I do recommend that you give it a listen. And this might be a record that might grow on me as the year goes on, but I don't know. For me, Rejoicer, Spiritual Sleaze, it's alright. We have Juicy the Emissary's Timber, released on Street Corner Music. I think this came out in 2020, but the copyright on the record says 2019, so I can't really pinpoint when it actually came out. I was a huge fan of his previous record on Street Corner Music. Attention Kmart Choppers was one of my favorite records. I love the thematic element of using Kmart radio tapes as the sample source for this entire record, but I love Juicy the Emissary's use of melody, and I like some of the drum sounds on there. Some really cool, catchy vocal hooks on here. There's some really nice, different, recognizable sample sources that just add to some of the more mind-blowing moments on this record. And overall, this really did end up becoming one of my favorite records on Street Corner Music. So I was a little disappointed going into this record knowing that there wasn't really a thematic through line for it. But ultimately, in the end, after multiple listens, this is one of the best beat tapes that I've heard in a long time. It has a lot of familiar elements, a lot of chop, sample chopping on here, and a lot of those swinging, snappy, Dilla-style drums that you're used to hearing on Street Corner Music related releases. But where I think this record really does end up standing on its own is in his melodic sense is second to none. Seriously, the melodies on here are just so catchy and so emotive. I don't think there's been a beat tape that's actually hit me emotionally ever. And I think that just comes down to there's this melodic sense that Juicy employs on a lot of the tracks on here that just feel so nostalgic of something that I really can't remember. But there's a certain feeling of melancholy mixed with a bit of playfulness that I really enjoy about a lot of the tracks on here. Add on top of it that it's a seamless listen. As you'll notice, there is no track listing, and the record itself, despite the fact that it has track breaks on all the songs, it's a seamless front to back listen. All of the tracks really feel like they're part and parcel of each other, and they all stand out individually, but they all work as a cohesive album project at the same time too. It's little moments like that, plus the little extra of live instrumentation and vocal contributions to this album that really make it one of the standout releases from Street Corner Music. If you haven't checked this one out, this is easily the most recommended record that I've listened to so far this year. And if you can, pick this one up as well as his previous work. And I don't know what else to say other than this might be one of my new favorite beat tapes, especially in recent memory.
I've been roped in to this plan I don't understand. Getaway driver, a couple grand, they robbed the bank. Seems simple, but they told me stop outside this house. I heard a bang and then they ran back to me.
We have Jake Milliner Bernie Says, released on Melting Pot Music in 2019. A record like this is precisely the reason that I wanted to do this compilation style video in the first place. The reason being is I really don't have that much to say about it. Do you like electronic infused, chilled out, smoky, light jazz infused instrumental hip hop? Then you're probably gonna dig this album. There's some cool moods on here, there's some cool textures, his drums hit hard enough, but ultimately it's just lacking a real sort of wow factor, and that just kind of makes it a record that's really easy to listen to and forget about it. Nothing about it really stands out except for a handful of tracks. Specifically, one track on here, Chauffeur for Some Killers featuring 25, is actually one of the best narrative rap tracks that I've heard in a while. But even with some of the live instrumentation that is included on this track, like Reminisce featuring some work from Alpha Mist or some of the keyboard work from Joe Armand Jones, ultimately I just find this to be a really solid, if not somewhat forgettable release. If any of the descriptors that I used for this record make it sound interesting, by all means give it a listen, but this is definitely not one of the best instrumental hip-hop projects I've heard in a while. But at the end of the day, I am glad that I added it to the collection, and I definitely think there might be a couple of tracks on here that I might end up using at some point. So, it's alright. So that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching. If you've checked out any of these albums, let me know what you thought of them down in the comments. If you'd like to hear any of the records that I talk about on this channel, please head over to my WordPress or Steemit blogs, because that's where I post music links to any of the records that I talk about on this channel. Also, as always, please head over to my Mixcloud. That's where you can check out Raw Select Radio, the audio component of this YouTube channel. And if you can, please head over to my Facebook page, Raw Select Music. There, from time to time, I will be posting the live streams that I have been doing as of late. Links to everything, as always, down in the description. But that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. So until then, peace out!